From the waters of southeastern Alaska to the Arctic, from the relatively warm waters of the Gulf of Alaska, through the Bering Sea and the Bering Strait, to Point Barrow and beyond in the Arctic Ocean, where navigation is closed off except for a brief period each year. This is the annual Alaskan Patrol, conducted by the Coast Guard. A patrol through a vast and sprawling area, along thousands of miles of seacoast, bordering the largest of our nation's territories, an area rich in minerals, furs, and fisheries. Also a land of contrasts, the main street of Nome, gateway to the Seward Peninsula and the Arctic Ocean, a settlement often called the last outpost of civilization in the far north. Then north from Nome, across the Brooks Range to a vast expanse of barren tundra, a seemingly endless vista of eternally frozen subsoil, with no sign of human habitation. Until suddenly, a primitive fishing village looms up, home of the Alaskan Eskimo, who, though adopting many of our customs and ways of life, still clings to an ancient culture. Beginning with the Alaskan voyage of the revenue cutter Lincoln in 1867, the year the United States purchased Alaska and the Russian flag was lowered at Sitka on Baranof Island, the Coast Guard has conducted this patrol. Known generally until World War II as the Bering Sea Patrol, and today, still fulfilling an important mission. For example, hydrographic surveys in shoal and coastal waters, where shifting ice and strong currents alter the sandy sea bottom from year to year. Providing aids to navigation. Here, about to replace batteries for an extinguished buoy light. Prevention of pelagic sealing, protecting seal herds going to and from the Pribilof Islands during their breeding season. In emergencies, providing transportation for natives in isolated regions of this huge territory. Among law enforcement activities, conducting the halibut fisheries patrol, seeing that fishing boats keep within designated boundaries. Together with the U.S. Public Health Service, providing medical and dental aid for Eskimos and Aleuts living along the Bering Sea and Arctic Ocean. For nearly 4 generations, until World War II, the Bering Sea Patrol continued discharging its many responsibilities in law enforcement and human welfare, from the days of the cutters Lincoln, Corwin, and Thetis, from the days of the famous Bear. The Bear, a Coast Guard cutter commissioned in 1885, and by its many services to the inhabitants of the Alaskan Territory, helping to build the historic traditions of the Coast Guard in the far north. Those were the days when the Coast Guard cutter in this vast and desolate area served as man's only contact with civilization, with the captain, the supreme judicial authority, often conducting a floating court to mete out justice to lawbreakers. Those were the days of the famous overland expedition from the Bear to Point Barrow, where in 1897 the crews of whaling ships were icebound, surviving only because of the arrival of a rescue party, driving a herd of reindeer over 700 miles, bringing food and medical supplies. And today, in a little graveyard at Unalaska in the Aleutian Islands, the tradition of the Bering Sea Patrol lives on, along graves marking the last resting place of those who once served on the Bear. But this is the present. Dawn in the harbor of Juneau in southeastern Alaska, with the Coast Guard cutter Klamath about to embark on the annual Alaskan Patrol. Getting things shipshape, performing the many housekeeping chores that keep a crew busy while in port. Now, time to take stores aboard as the day of departure nears. Enough provisions for a cruise that will take the next 3 months. Early on a July morning, the Klamath set out on the Alaskan patrol. This was to be the first leg of the voyage, across the Gulf of Alaska, heading for Kodiak. Then, Unimak Island, bound for Dutch Harbor and the village of Unalaska in the Aleutians. Soon after entering the Gulf of Alaska, with the halibut season only recently opened, a fishing boat is spotted. Its set lines and marker buoys somewhat close to boundaries outlined by international treaty. A boarding party prepares to go aboard the halibut boat to investigate. Because unrestricted fishing once threatened a depletion of halibut in the Gulf of Alaska, a convention between the United States and Canada has set up certain ground rules which all fishermen must obey. The Coast Guard is charged with the enforcement of the provisions of this convention, but it is soon determined that all is in order, and the halibut fisherman is permitted to continue hauling in his catch. The Klamath moves on, now passing Kodiak Island on the way to Unimak Pass and the Bering Sea, with the scenic beauty of this region in the background. At length, Unimak Island is reached, the first of the Aleutian chain. Soon the still active volcano, Mount Shishaldin, can be seen, its peak towering nearly 10,000 feet in the sky. Then, Dutch Harbor and the town of Unalaska, with the volcanic origin of this island chain clearly visible. With the Klamath safely anchored in the channel, a Liberty Party takes off, heading for the village of Unalaska, the largest settlement on the island of the same name. Once a thriving stopping-off place for whaling ships, sealers, and explorers, today, Unalaska is a quiet little village in a barren, treeless world, surrounded by volcanic hills. At the doorstep of the Bering Sea, the climate of this island is comparatively mild, with the warm waters of the Japanese current moving close to its shores. Today, Unalaska still serves as an outfitting station for ships passing to and from the Pacific and Arctic Oceans. Of Americans, there are also some of the Russian descent, with the Byzantine architecture of this church reminding us of the first exploration and settlement of Unalaska by 2 Russian explorers in 1765. Now, time for the Klamath to resume its cruise. From Dutch Harbor, the Klamath will head for the Pribilof Islands, breeding grounds of the seals of the North Pacific. When these breeding grounds were first discovered, there were over 3 million seals here, a population which, in the face of the indiscriminate killing of these fur-bearing animals by crews of pelagic sealing schooners, rapidly dwindled, until in 1910, little over 100,000 remained. With the Pribilofs coming into possession of the United States, the North Pacific Sealing Convention was signed, to protect these animals from extinction, with Coast Guard cutters standing by to guard the route to and from these islands. Today, the seal population of the North Pacific has regained its former numbers. Time out for recreation aboard the Klamath. Swimming at midnight in waters where the sun, during the summer months, sets for only a short time. Craft work in the sail locker. And of course, for the Isaac Walton enthusiast, a fishing party. Always an eventful day when the Coast Guard plane arrives with mail from home. With the month of July nearing its end, the Klamath will soon set its course back to the mainland. Heading across the lonely stretches of the Bering Sea toward Norton Sound and the river village of Unalakleet, an Eskimo village whose main activity lies along its sandy beach, for it is from here that the local hunters and fishermen take off in their small boats. Among these Eskimos of this comparatively southerly region of Alaska, homes are log cabins built of spruce from nearby forests. Near each home is a storage house built high off the ground as a protection from prying wolves. Along with a small patch of vegetables, each home also has a rack for drying salmon, taken from the sea all during the summer months. Then split into fillets and hung up to dry for about a 2-week period, after which they are stored in the family cache for the long winter months ahead. In fact, the entire economy of this area is tied in with fishing, along with trapping and hunting, with the Eskimo fisherman paying close attention to the condition of his nets. But the Eskimo also devotes many of his spare Unalakleet region, but throughout Alaska, here fashioning a pair of snow goggles from the hoof of a caribou. Here an old Eskimo woman working on the sole of a boot or mukluk. And farther to the north, ivory is being carved. In the far north, jade is often found, able to be fashioned into a wide variety of ornamentation. Meanwhile, the women folk are busy building their winter wardrobe, here an attiga or parka. This one is cloth and the fur of a wolverine. From Unalakleet, the Klamath now heads for Nome to pick up the ship's mail and permit crew members to go ashore after 6 weeks aboard ship. The small but fabulous city of Nome, so often heralded in history and fiction, lying close to a bleak shoreline. Its backyard, mile upon mile of moss-covered tundra and low, rolling hills. A far cry from the gold rush days when Nome was a teeming metropolis, drawing thousands of prospectors in search of sudden riches. But even to this day, placer mining still goes on, huge dredges daily chewing away at the earth, attempting to squeeze out of its frozen grasp the precious ore buried deep in acres upon acres of earth and gravel. Our next port of call, St. Lawrence Island, near the gateway to the Bering Strait, separating Siberia from Alaska. From the Klamath, medical equipment comes ashore to aid in checking the health of the natives of the village of Gamble on the northwest cape of the island. As word spreads of the arrival of the Klamath, those in need of medical or dental attention, entire families, as well as individuals, head for the schoolhouse in Gamble. By blood to the Siberian Eskimo, these people live in a cheerless land, fog-bound most of the summer, ice-bound most of the year. Old and young, some come out of curiosity, others because of their need for medical or dental attention, awaiting their turn to enter the schoolhouse, temporarily converted into a medical center. As the Coast Guard discharges another of its responsibilities on the Alaskan patrol, bringing medical and dental aid to the natives of this far-off territory. From St. Lawrence Island, the Klamath now heads through the Bering Strait, into the Chukchi Sea, toward the mainland area of Kotzebue and Kivalina in northern Alaska. These are the Arctic Eskimos of this region, a friendly, hardy people. Living a communal type of life in which the struggle for survival is the main theme of existence. With sea animals such as the walrus, the seal, the beluga or white whale, and larger whales, as well as large game, providing their food, also skins for their winter clothing. Here is their winter igloo, a home built of sod, the roof covered with the skin of an ugruk or sea lion for protection from the weather, with the entrance through a small tunnel. On the roof, a modern note, a radio antenna. During the summer months, when temperatures in this Arctic climate range as high as 65 degrees, there is time to build their boats, mend their sleds, and gather their winter supplies. Children learn early in life the rudiments of survival. There is an Eskimo saying that the woman of the family is good for fishing and babies. Every Eskimo woman is an expert at handling the ulu, or woman's knife. Salmon is a source of winter food, though most of their seafood comes from larger size whales, the walrus, and the seal. All summer long, the work goes on, making sure that a sufficient catch is taken from the sea, cut and dried and stored away. Even the salmon roe is saved, hung up on the drying racks with youngsters helping their parents build a family cache for the winter months to come. That is the work of these people day after day, And this is how they play. It is said that the Eskimo seldom learns to swim because of the frigid temperatures of the waters of the Arctic Ocean and the Bering Sea. But on this hot day, a drove of mosquitoes forced the children of the village, counter to the legend, scurrying for safety into the Kivalina River. With the Coast Guard cutter anchored off the village, a call goes out to those among the population in need of dental or medical treatment. A service extended to each of the isolated communities visited each summer by the Alaskan Patrol. A visit awaited by many of these people throughout the year. Mother and infant, here for a medical checkup. Youngsters to have their teeth checked and treated. Several generations ago, tooth decay was something unknown to the Eskimo. But today, as he adopts many of the food habits of the white man's diet, the condition of his teeth have also changed, showing many of the problems of the white man. A U.S. public health officer is aboard the Klamath to inspect each patient's teeth and to provide treatment where needed. In addition to dental care, routine chest x-rays are also taken. From Kivalina, the Alaskan Patrol heads north to the tiny Eskimo settlement at Point Hope. Here in these Arctic waters, a beluga or white whale has been caught. Food for the winter, an event calling for a celebration among the Eskimo population. The Nalukattuk dance, marking the successful end of the hunt, a dance rarely seen by the white man. The drum is fashioned from a circular hoop of wood and whalebone, with the dried skin of the whale's stomach stretched over it. Each dance tells a story, with the hand action of the dancer recounting perhaps a successful walrus or seal hunt, perhaps a story he remembers from his childhood. In this traditional dance handed down from generation to generation, today vanishing from the folklore of these people, the women add their voice to the chant. Note that when a woman performs the Nalukattuk dance, she does not move her feet. This is said by the Eskimo to lend firmness to her dance. From Point Hope, the Alaskan Patrol resumes its voyage, past Cape Lisburn and Icy Cape, heading for Point Barrow, hoping to reach the end point of this 3-month cruise before the ice fields close off the Arctic for the rest of the year. And so the Coast Guard adds another chapter to a long and colorful history, beginning with the purchase of Alaska nearly a century ago. A history to which a number of Coast Guard cutters, their names long faded in memory, have made important contributions in law enforcement and human welfare, helping to build the peace and prosperity of this vast northern territory. A territory which is today assuming an increasing importance in the welfare and security of our nation.